The program that ultimately produced the McClung-class began in 2020 with the legitimate tactical requirement for a light amphibious warship capable of maneuvering under fire in the contested littorals of the Indo-Pacific. As cost estimates swelled and design specifications softened, the Navy quietly discarded the term light in favor of medium, a bureaucratic sleight of hand that masked the platform's regression toward a purely commercial cargo standard. In December 2025, Naval Sea Systems Command selected the Damen LST-100 design as the baseline, investing $3.3 million for a technical data package license in what can best be described as emergency procurement. With the People's Liberation Army Navy expanding its fleet at a breakneck pace and no time to waste on a decade-long clean sheet design, the Navy was forced into a race against the clock. This licensing arrangement severed any direct business relationship between Damen and American shipyards. The Navy now holds the rights to distribute build-to-print plans to any domestic yard it selects. The McClung-class is not a nimble assault ship, but a licensed copy of a foreign freighter whose top speed of 14 knots represents a fundamental compromise between industrial urgency and tactical vulnerability. The McClung-class's 14-knot flank speed represents a deliberate abandonment of the Cold War lesson that speed equals survival in amphibious operations. And to characterize this vessel as agile in a contested environment is to disregard the lethality of modern anti-ship missiles. Unless this ship operates under absolute emissions control and complete air superiority, it functions less as a maneuver element and more as a conspicuous, slow-moving target. However, a purely technical critique must acknowledge one ironic benefit of this sluggishness: a low acoustic signature. A hull moving at 14 knots generates significantly less propeller cavitation and underwater noise than a frigate sprinting at 30 knots, making the LSM marginally more difficult for adversary submarines to detect and track passively. This does not make the ship stealthy in any meaningful sense. Its radar cross-section remains large, but it does provide a slender tactical advantage when creeping through contested archipelagic waters under strict emission control protocols. Proponents of the LSM concept defend the platform by arguing that its 3.58-meter draft allows it to hide among shallow reefs and island clutter, where deep-draft Chinese destroyers cannot follow. This argument possesses a kernel of validity. Littoral radar clutter, the chaotic reflection of electromagnetic waves off rocky coastlines and mangrove swamps, does degrade the effectiveness of over-the-horizon targeting radars, providing a physical buffer that faster blue-water combatants cannot exploit. Nevertheless, this terrain masking is a poor substitute for genuine speed or defensive armament in an era of persistent space-based surveillance. A 330-foot steel vessel cannot simply vanish from the view of a constellation of electro-optical and synthetic aperture radar satellites. The narrative that the LSM will operate as a clandestine, small stealth freighter is a convenient justification for a platform that is too slow to run and too soft to fight, even if it can momentarily blur a radar screen. The Marine Corps' Force Design 2030 and Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations concepts have been strategically retrofitted to accommodate the severe limitations of this hull. The current doctrine imagines a scenario in which these slow ships creep forward during the pre-hostility phase, offload their cargo of HIMARS launchers or Nemesis anti-ship missiles onto isolated atolls, and then retreat to safer waters before the first shot is fired. While sustaining a distributed force across the vast distances of the Pacific is a legitimate logistical requirement, this is a cargo sustainment mission, not an amphibious assault capability. By retaining the landing ship nomenclature rather than calling it a transport or freighter, the Navy preserves the fiction that this is a frontline combat vessel, thereby protecting amphibious warfare billets and budget lines while delivering a ship that would be torn apart in any genuinely contested ship-to-shore movement. One cannot honestly analyze the acceleration of the LSM program without acknowledging that it serves as a direct instrument of industrial base preservation for Fincantieri Marinette Marine following the Navy's catastrophic mismanagement of the Constellation-class frigate program. When the Navy canceled all but 2 Constellation hulls in November 2025, it left the Wisconsin shipyard, into which Fincantieri had invested over $800 million over the preceding decade, facing a devastating workload gap. The $30 million contract awarded in April 2026 for LSM long lead materials was less a strategic procurement decision and more a matter of national security imperative. If Marinette Marine were allowed to fail, the United States would permanently lose a critical yard capable of building complex surface combatants. Congress explicitly added $800 million to the LSM program to ensure the yard's workforce remained intact. The McClung-class is therefore a vessel defined by the necessity of maintaining a warm production base, as much as by the Marine Corps' stated operational needs. The substitution of 14-knot LSM hulls for the 26-knot guided missile frigates originally planned for Fincantieri represents a significant degradation of the fleet's overall combat capability, even if it solves a short-term industrial management problem. The Constellation class, for all its design and cost issues, was intended to be a multi-mission surface combatant capable of escorting carrier strike groups and conducting independent operations in high-threat environments. The McClung-class, by stark contrast, is a lightly armed cargo vessel that cannot even outrun a surface diesel-electric submarine. By directing Fincantieri to build these slow freighters as compensation for the frigate fiasco, the Navy is effectively offsetting a failure in designing modern combatants by flooding the fleet with simple logistics hulls that are easy to build but difficult to employ in a shooting war. The path from Damen's LST-100 to Fincantieri's construction bay reveals not so much the absurdity of international collaboration — such partnerships are routine within NATO — but rather a profound integration risk that should concern naval analysts. The problem is not that the design is Dutch or that the yard is Italian-owned. The problem is whether an American workforce in Wisconsin, accustomed to building to U.S. Navy military specifications, can flawlessly execute a build-to-print package derived from European commercial shipbuilding standards. The Constellation-class frigate debacle demonstrated precisely this vulnerability, as the Navy's attempt to modify a proven European design, FREM, with U.S. survivability standards led to massive weight growth and cost overruns. If similar specification mismatches emerge as Fincantieri translates Damen's metric drawings and commercial welding standards into Navy-compliant combat systems, the LSM program could easily replicate the very delays and cost increases it was designed to avoid. Stripped of its doctrinal euphemisms and glossy government marketing, the McClung-class LSM is best understood as a stealth but slow landing freighter, a licensed copy of a Dutch cargo vessel built in an Italian-owned American shipyard, sustained by Congress as an act of industrial base preservation. It is a modestly capable, shallow-draft logistics platform optimized for peacetime sustainment and the quiet movement of equipment between friendly coastlines. It will undoubtedly perform useful service in low-intensity engagements and as a theater connector during exercises, but it is dangerously ill-suited for the high-end, contested assault environment its landing ship designation implies. The transformation from the promising light amphibious warship concept of 2020 to the sluggish medium landing ship of 2026 is an admission of defeat in the face of fiscal constraints and a broken acquisition system. The fundamental problem with the McClung-class is not its design, but its timing. The United States is building a 14-knot turtle in an ocean patrolled by 1,200 surveillance satellites and hypersonic anti-ship missiles. Without massive joint air and electronic warfare protection, this vessel is less a warship and more a floating target practice drone for the modern Chinese anti-access and area denial network.